You ready? Where's the flag up there? Call to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tina's running late. She'll be here. No. Yep. Okay, I'd entertain a motion to accept the February 9th, 2023 school board meeting minutes. Moved by Phoebe. Do we have a second? Put your hand up. Robin. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Jody? Elaine? Yes. Sasha? Andrew? Yes. Chantel? Abstain? Robin?
Yes.
Abstain.
Holly?
Nope.
How about Joel?
February 9th.
February 9th, 30 minutes?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Phoebe? Yes.
Yes. So moved. I'd entertain a motion to accept the February 16th, 2023 school board meeting minutes. Moved by Phoebe, second Jody. Any errors, omissions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Yes.
Holly? Sasha? Yes. Robin?
Yes.
Jody? Yes. Elaine? Hi. Yes. Tina's on her way.
We already know that.
Chantel? Oh, you know that? Abstain? Andrew? Phoebe? Yes. Joel? Abstain. Bob?
Yes. So moved. Public comments. Sherry.
On. I have a comment and then I have a question. So Rumford's school budget is down 1.3 million. Derigo's budget's down almost $100,000. We have lost our mill. I would like to know what your plan is going forward, how we lower our budget. We can't sustain where we are now. We have 250 people who have just lost their jobs. Do we have a plan? Have we talked about it? Is there anything in the pipeline to help lower the budget?
This is the budget we proposed, so it'll be up to the board to decide whether or not they're going to stay with this budget to bring it to the taxpayers.
So the answer is no.
No, at this point in time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any board comments? Jody?
As I'm sure everybody here is aware, that our girls' basketball team put their hearts down in Portland on that court 3 different times over the last 3 weeks and did an amazing job. But I just want to acknowledge Mr. Keller and Mr. Plord for being there every single time to support the students and the parents and those players. And I thank you, because that's a long trip from a parent that has had to do that. But for our administration to be there, I thank you.
Joel? And I think a lot of you saw the note Rob sent around as far as the robotics team, but they had a trip. They were way down below Boston for their event this past weekend, and the team did great. It was excellent. I mean, seeing them all do everything, the robot work, all the kids from Spruce, from Mount Blue, there's a few homeschoolers in there too, and just really worked it through, got out there. Came out of there in really good shape for getting to New England, which is a key thing, their mission to do. And the robot really kind of held up through the whole thing, which is, that was a super complex robot this year. We'll get it down here one of these days, but they're now 2 weeks from tonight, they're loading the trailer up for going to their next competition down at UNH. So it flies right through. So just want to recognize them.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Seeing none, superintendent's report.
You guys both stole my stuff. Just want to say congratulations to the Blue Crew at the robotics qualifier. The robot finished in 8th place. Their alliance with another group, that's the competition they work with another group. They've considered they received a 3rd place overall. They were also selected as the event safety all-star team and received the Team Spirit Award as well. So congratulations to the Blue Crew. Also congratulations to our girls varsity basketball team for a wonderful season, finishing as runner-up in the state championship game. It was a very exciting, entertaining game in which our kids showed no quitting in their fantastic comeback. They should all be very proud of themselves. Since our last meeting, I had a meeting with Shiloh LaFrenne, J Town Manager, to discuss the mill closure. Attended the school violence prevention grant meeting with SRO Gage. Attended our district safety meeting. I also attended a Western Maine superintendent's meeting. Was involved in Teamsters negotiations. I also attended a meeting with Mr. Vining with Siemens and Dend River to discuss an issue. And also during that time, I met with Chris, Ken, and Crystal to discuss our ESSER grants and where we are at this point with those.
Any questions, comments for Scott? Okay, administrator reports. Chris?
Okay. So we as a district get a little bit of an early look at the results from last year that the DOE put out for our state assessments. So I passed that out for you tonight that you can look over at your leisure. If you do, you don't have to have, I mean, you can have questions tonight, but if you have questions after looking at it as well, you can always just email me anything that you're interested in. I just gave you last year's. I do have a copy of the year before if you want. Try not to compare those too much, because if you remember, the year before was when we weren't even in school, and so you'll see, if you looked at that one, you see that we didn't have as many kids taking the test. This one started to move up more, and then this is the state's view of, and it just starts out with the whole state. You can see how the state did. You can look at us as a district, and then each of the schools that do the state testing, you can see where they kind of fell in the state testing as well. And gives a good overview. You can see that the state is kind of adjusting what they get for results. They have their own formula. So all this data comes from NWEA, but when we look at NWEA, it'll look different than what this is, because the state has their own formula to adjust for what they consider to be meeting and not meeting and things like that. So, so as a whole, we're looking pretty good. I will say, not that I think you should look at this, but I'll let you know anyways. From when the pandemic was and we tested, we've actually, so the math, we've gone up some. Now that we have all the kids back, we've actually not done quite as well in language arts. So, but, which makes sense, because we've been, over the last several years, we've been putting a lot of focus on programs for math, and so now it's time to start looking at different, not programs necessarily, but what we need to put in place for language arts. Any questions?
Any questions? Elaine?
Sure. Thanks for the agendas for the 16th and 17th. Empathy training, where does this come from? A staff request? Is this, why are we doing it? Just curiosity.
I'm going to let Scott answer that, because that's, he's been working with a lady that's,
Leah Boyd from Clarity Services has worked with our district before. Worked with our, actually right now is working with all our counselors because they need some help because they're overwhelmed as well. They had also worked with the high school, she had also worked with the high school staff 2 years ago. Her company got a grant and they wanted to come work with our school district because they worked with us before. They've already met and done some work with the bus drivers. Just different ways to take a look at how to deal with certain situations when it comes to emotional health. Having that empathy. So it's called Empathy for Everyone. We have the initial training, the 3 hour worth of training for each school during those 2 days. And then there are 2 follow-up hour-and-a-half sessions when we have the early dismissal time. It's a piece of education that we need. Yeah. Yeah.
Two other things. I know that when we're looking at scores, we're still looking at trying to bring kids back to where they need to be after loss of time. I know we have math and reading language arts coaches at the primary and elementary, is that correct?
right.
Do we have one of each in each building?
No, we're actually sharing. We have one math coach and one reading coach, and they kind of go back and forth between the elementary and the primary.
Okay. And how much are we with that position working with kids? It's kind of weird, like
Yeah.
we're all hands on deck.
Yeah, yeah. They definitely still work with kids, and I think as we've gone through the year, they've re-looked at that to see, and saw that maybe even there's some more need to work directly with kids. When the coaching first started, it was to try to get into the classrooms to help the teachers and things like that, but it is, yeah, and we are starting to see a little bit of a shift back just because of the numbers of kids, of working a little bit more directly with them at this point, just because we don't have enough staff, to do all that. Yeah.
Personnel the best way we possibly can. I'm thinking that coaching is less important now than delivering students one-on-one. Let's get kids where they need to look at their assessments, look at those kids that missed the gaps, and let's do something.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yep.
I appreciate that. Do more.
Robin?
Turned it on. Hey, Chris, let's go back to the teachers' workshop before. I had received a couple of complaints from teachers about the change in the workshop that they were supposed to have. And I know that you and Mr. Albert had explained to me what was going on, but I think that needs to come out better to everybody as to what the reasoning was, why you changed from a data-based workshop to, my understanding, a team-building workshop, because I'm sure there are teachers that talk to other people, and it's out in the community and places, and I think you need to explain why that change was made.
Yeah.
So that
There
everybody's on the
was
same-
no change made. It was always, the workshop we had was the one we always planned, one I had talked to administrators about. It was the title that apparently confused people, because we were trying to make it, where it was going to be a team-building activity, we tried to make it a little more lighthearted, the title. We talked about, and the title was having fun and making data stress-free. And so I think people got confused by the title. The workshop itself never changed.
Okay.
But I can certainly put out something to clarify that the workshop didn't change, but it was just the title that might have confused people.
Yeah, I think, communication is always a good thing. And speaking of communication, one thing that was mentioned by a couple of people was that there was a survey of the staff and how they're feeling about things, and I'd love to see it. I really think that the board needs to see what's going on with the staff in the survey that they filled out.
That's not my survey.
That survey was done by the association, so you can ask Nathan. That wasn't
Mr.
our,
Harmden,
that wasn't our survey that went out.
thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thanks.
Norma?
Hello. Don't really have a lot to report, except about the lights that the state is deciding who gets what for new traffic lights for the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. I was asked last time for quotes. I contacted Henry's, Fraser, and AD&D Electric. Fraser's the only one that got back to me. I did speak with AD&D Electric. He said it could cost anywhere from $7,800 to $9,000. I just would like it in writing, and he hasn't sent it to me yet. And that's all I got, unless you have questions.
Any questions? Thank you.
And I want to say thank you to Phoebe. She come up a couple weeks ago and delivered us a whole case of K-cups for our coffee maker and some donuts this morning. And Andrew delivers our DEF a lot of the time, and the guys are always out there helping them. So we appreciate that, too. Thank you.
Ken?
Good evening. Don't have a lot. Same. I probably have a little bit more than Norma did, but not much more. Everything's going pretty well with the facilities things. As everybody hears, we do have some issues and on different issues and things. But one of our biggest obstacles in my facilities is that to try to keep everybody healthy, to try to keep enough custodian employees to come into work, and that's been a struggle. It's been a struggle for the last 2 years. I know I talk about it every time I come up here, but I still like people to understand that through sicknesses and family sicknesses and that stupid COVID still is around. We still have people going out on COVID, and whenever to make you understand that whenever somebody goes out on COVID or a long-term sickness, transportation has to take our custodians out of our buildings and utilize them. So even if we can't find anybody to fill in, we have to offer the opportunity for some of the other custodians to work. We've been very blessed. We have some extremely hard-working employees here that don't mind working, putting the time in. I know everybody looks and says, well, they get paid well. Well, they do, and you guys who have worked in the mills know that 16, 20 hours a day is a long time. So certainly I keep hoping that people stay healthy. And that we can continue on doing the best that we can always do on this. Over vacation time, we had a couple items that we done that I spoke to you about the last time. One was we had 28 lights replaced in the high school gym. We had to wait till we had a long period. This has been going. I mean, lights been going out, but we had to rent a 40-foot lift and it had to have time. Had to have 2 days to lift the people up to change the lights. So that went well. We got that done. There still are some more lights even up higher up, but at a different kind of light, but we'll get those as probably during the vacation. Nothing that we did do that, and I forgot to mention it when we went down, a couple of us walked down through the building. If you look in the old section down by the other rooms that we went down and looked at, those floors are all tile now. The mold carpets were torn out during that time. I wish we could have replaced all the carpets, but there again, issues arrived with not just us people being sick and on vacation, the people that were coming in doing the carpets. You know, we went from a 3-man crew down to a 1-man crew, and then one day we didn't have no man crew. So, I mean, we got behind on that, so they didn't all get finished. We still have carpets, as you see right out here, that will be finished, I hope, during April. That's what we have the plans, and we have carpets no, I take it back. We have a half a carpet upstairs, half a wing that needs to be finished. We did complete one wing. So I think that's going to help a lot. I think it will, you know, when you get 20-year-old carpets, they seem to have a tendency to have a lot more odors and things. So that was great to get rid of that. I'm sorry I mentioned last time about how good I thought the winter was going with the warm weather and not having to worry about snow, and we had to deal with more ice and it just hadn't gone too good for the last couple of weeks. We finally got our snow and our shoveling to fill in for the year. Hopefully it's the end. I'm sure it's not, but hopefully. On March 1st, we had our second safety committee, as Scott mentioned, and himself, the principals, law enforcement, Norma, EMA deputy, Joe Sage, certainly he did most of the work there and put it on. So I think it did a great job. We've caught up and redid all of our safety programs, got all the correct names in, and so I think we're on our way. When we meet again, we'll have some new things to bring out. March 3rd, went around to all the buildings with Scott Holmes from Maine School Management. We went through, he does a safety inspection that's through our insurance company. Each year they go through all the buildings. This is a new person. Ed Ants, I'm not sure if anybody is familiar with him. He'd been around for 20 years, and he was a great guy that did it, but we've got a new sheriff in town now, and I think he's going to be a little fussier. And I guess I can end on, well, I'm going to say one more thing. You all have heard about some of the odors and things that we have in this district, in this school here. I hope you realize that we are working on it. We have been diligently trying to figure it out what it is, you know, and where we're going to go with it all. We do have testing coming in next Wednesday. They'll come in and do some testing to pretty much end any, I hope, any thought that something's coming out of this building. So we are on it, and I will myself try to do a little better at talking to some of the people that have had complaints. I try to deal more with just Michael, but you know, I have no problem with talking to anybody, so certainly if anybody wants to talk about it, we certainly can. And I'm going to end on a quote, like I usually like to do, talking about some students and things that I've seen kind of struggling and things, and this quote kind of hit me a little bit there, and it's really hit me when it comes from the person it came from. And the quote goes, if they can make penicillin out of moldy bread, they can sure make something out of you. And that was from Muhammad Ali.
Is that Scott Holmes from Dixfield?
Yes.
I know him. Andrew? Robin?
I just want to thank you again for being so proactive when we had that cold spell about a month ago, and checking the buildings and make sure that everything was secure, because I've heard some horror stories about businesses and institutions that did not do that, and they ended up paying out a lot of money and losing a lot of time. So you saved us a lot. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, but we had some great people that was helping.
Ken, I did note, I worked in this building, and I did notice the tile instead of the carpet, and it looks awesome. I know the carpet was really helpful with noise reduction, but oh my gosh, it's so much brighter and cleaner.
Thank you.
But one thing, and this really isn't aimed at you as much, but this whole thing with the odors and teachers getting sick and complaints from kids having headaches, we need to do a better job of communicating with everybody about what's going on. Okay, this is how rumors start. and this is how panic ensues. So we really need to communicate with the staff and with the parents about what's going on with the school, okay? Or we're going to end up in a bad way.
Elaine?
I just want to thank you for taking the time and showing us tonight what was going on so we could respond to that, and I really appreciate your hard work on it.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much for
Thank
that.
you.
Anyone else? Thank you. Robin?
Good evening. Our office has been heavily involved in working with the rapid response team and setting up opportunities for anyone coming out of the Pixel Mill. Our hope is that they can access resources such as education and training, retirement, financial planning, insurance plans. We had 52 Pixel employees attend our resource fair 2 weeks ago. Looking at, there are 201 people that were left in the mill. We served about a quarter of them. I feel like that's a good success. In general, the feedback was positive. The constructive criticism we received was centered more around spacing and the inability for people to have confidential conversations. As such, we are moving our job fair event to the middle school gym to alleviate some of these barriers, and I just wanted to thank Chris for being able to accommodate that for us. Today we interviewed 14 finalists for available spots in the upcoming medical assisting program. The next class will begin Tuesday, March 28th. I just can't stress enough to you, like, we have wait lists for all of our medical classes. It is such a resource in this community for people to have that upward mobility to take medical classes. Our culinary students have been hard at work in their accelerated program. We're getting students prepared for their Serve Safe exam. They'll take that in the beginning of April. If you want to check out the cafe, do that soon. There are only 2 more weeks left of that, again, because it's the accelerated program. So if you're in the areas on Tuesday or Thursday, give us a shout. We'll make a meal for you. Last Friday, we invited representatives from Jared Golden's office, Susan Collins, Angus King, to walk through the process of applying for the congressionally directed spending dollars. This federal grant is mostly focused on projects that have high community impact. Pam Harnden, she did hear about this meeting through the grapevine. She attended and beautifully captured the essence of kind of what we are planning to do as a community, and finding helpful ways to uplift our community in such a challenging time. There have been discussions around revamping and renovating the AYS building to ensure all members of our community have a community building, a place to access fitness, education, youth mentoring, social service agencies. The grant application process is only open for 2 weeks. Yeah, it's a very quick turnaround time. So that application is due, one is due March 15th, one is due the 17th. So if you don't see me around much next week, that is what I am doing, writing that grant with Kendra Baker from the United Way. Lastly, the Maine Development Foundation also attended our Friday meeting to discuss funding opportunities for our region. You might remember last year I had talked about the MDF application that we put in for the Build Back Better grant, where we were a finalist. We got to like 60th out of thousands across the United States. We haven't given up on trying to find alternative funding for a CDL program. So that there's an additional pot of funding up to $1 million that we've been working with MDF on. Shiloh has also been a part of those conversations. We want to ensure that the town of Jay is wrapped into this. So like we're vying for a CDL program. That's like the biggest need that we had heard out of my visits to the Pixel Mill. We asked like if you could pick anything that you could do as a workforce training class, the top 3, CDL, welding, and HVAC. So we have been very lucky to work with Justin Merrill from Merrill's Garage and Samantha Byam from Vortex to better understand how to support local employers that benefit from having CDL, or people that have that credential, and build an appropriate budget to fund this entirely through that pot of money. Fingers crossed that we get it. Any questions?
Any questions, comments? Pat, Elaine?
Robin, I just wanted to say thank you for all the hard work that you're putting in
all the time for the grants, and just even the communication of trying to reach out and bring a delegation, into the community and discuss the future of, all the things that you're trying to do, and it's really fantastic. I read the article. It was
That's
capturing
all Pam.
really
That was great.
great, yeah. And just to think with the culinary program how excellent that is, if you were able to facilitate something like that at AYS, growing your program. I think it's a fantastic thing. Education just doesn't stop at high school, and the opportunities that you're providing there are fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, I really appreciate that.
Said it before, and I'll say it again. The things you're doing are so wonderful for serving our communities. The school has that responsibility, but we're serving as well the adults in the community of need. And you've been so proactive, and I just greatly appreciate it. I know several people that have taken part, either through students' parents, or former students, or people I've just met in the doctor's office who've enjoyed and just speak volumes about what they've learned and what this opportunity has meant to them in their career. And it's a fabulous program. I hope more people will take advantage of it. Thank you for the hours and hours you put into this. Our community needs to thank you.
Well, thank you, but I feel like I should also say I have a great staff surrounding me and the support of administration, and the board, of course, so
100%.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Thank you. Well, I was being third in line to say these things, but I'm going to say them anyway. Congratulations to the Blue Crew. I do want to say that it's a testament to both Spruce and Mount Blue that they work well together. And then when they get down and they team up with another team that they don't even know to work well together, that's really awesome. And I also want to congratulate the girls' basketball team. I watched it at home, watched all of them at home. My wife's not a big basketball fan, but when our girls were down 21 points in the third quarter, her comment was, "This isn't good. This is not good." She says, they're going to lose bad, aren't they? And I says, look at their faces. They haven't given up at all. Look at their body motions on the floor. They're not dragging. They haven't given up. They're going to make a comeback. I didn't expect them to come back quite as much, but it was amazing. So congratulations to all. Okay. Okay, old business, school budget discussion. And I do want to say to everyone, our next meeting, we have to sign the warrants. We really shouldn't be making changes then. We can't, because they're going to be drawn up. We have to sign them as is. So if you have anything that, you want to talk about, in the budget that, you want to cut, you want to add, no, not add, but this is the time to do it. This is your last chance, really. So keep that in mind. Scott?
Well, there haven't been any changes since last time. We're at 4.92 from last year's budget. When you take a look at what that means for taxes per each town, Livermore Falls actually goes up 2.87%. Livermore's goes up 5.07%, and Jay goes up 5.63%. The reason Jay's goes up so much is because last year, because of the sudden and severe, remember we asked for $1.6 million less from the town of Jay last year. So even though it's up from last year, what they need to pay, it's still down from the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that. So, but a lot of that has to do with the change in the evaluation and the fact that the state is picking up about 69.3% of the budget, trying to offset because of the changes in evaluation.
Any questions, comments?
So, I think I said the same thing last year, but my degree is in rural economic development. If you want to develop your area, if you want to improve on your area, the first place you improve on is your school system. If you want to draw in people that have money, that will start businesses, that will develop a business here, you have to have a good school system. I know that this budget is going up. My view is it's not going up enough, because we need to pay our teachers what they are worth. That said, we've got a good school system. We continue to better that school system. And if Jay, Livermore Falls and Livermore wants to increase the worth of these towns, they need to vote yes on this budget. Thank you.
Anyone else? Joel?
I know these are samples, and I know my math and whatnot. I'm just wondering, on Article 19, if we picked up another town, or am I missing a 30,000 when you take 120,000 divided by 3?
Yeah.
Or, I'm just wondering, was there something else in there? It just, for me, the way I look at that and think 3 towns, it just.
Our budget would be easier if we had a 4th town.
I know.
think, but-
But I'd encourage you, either clarify that better or make it look like we know math.
Yep, that's a mistake in the sample, yep. That's why we go through the samples, yep. We really gave out the sample because we know there's a lot of people on the board that are new, and this is what you'll be looking at next week when you actually will go down through each article and vote. And some of you have done it before, but you only get to see it once a year. So that, I mean, that's what you will vote on each article next week, hopefully in favor of. Because then this will go to the budget meeting that we have before the 3 towns, and they will get a chance to vote on each article. And once approved, I believe there's only going to be one question on the ballot this year. That's the overall question of passing the budget as a whole number. The other things we had last year, doing things by referendum, you only have to vote on that once every 3 years. We're not asking for anything separate for another reserve clause. Last year, we also had to have they voted about the tennis courts. Remember, the tennis courts, though, weren't on the ballot. That was on just the town meeting itself, so. So that's an important meeting. That's on April 6th. We hope a lot of people come out that night.
So on 19, what's the correct figure? Should it be 90,000
I
and
think it
30
should be-
or
it should-
120 and 40?
That should be 90,000 because it's 30,000 less from each town, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, the 120 should say 90, yeah, because it's 30,000 from each town.
Are we going to go through these one by one?
You don't have to. Because that's what we're going to have to do next week.
Right.
Does anybody have any questions on any of these articles?
We're kind of getting ahead to new business, so.
Oh.
Anything else on the budget before the next one's budget too, but. Okay, so let's move on now to the sample budget warrants. Anything on that? Any questions that you have on that? And I'm going to reiterate, it is super important that you are there next week, if at all possible, because of signing these.
And we get this from Drummond and Woodson as well. The stuff goes to Drummond and Woodson, they send it back to us so that it's worded the correct way.
Chantel?
So I'm gonna ask this question, I'm not trying to stir any pot.
but we did have someone who mentioned other school districts had cuts. Do you happen to know what their cuts are? Because we went through this very thoroughly, and like Robin said, you know, if we want to keep a certain standard, and I mean, I'll say it all day, our teachers do not make enough, and that's a personal opinion to me, but I don't know how you would be able to cut anything and still be able to function to where we want to be. Do we know how other districts are cutting?
Many of them are farther behind us in the process. We vote earlier than a lot of districts do. A lot of districts won't actually have their budget vote till later. I don't know if they had more in their budget that they felt was fat that they could cut. A couple of the numbers that were mentioned tonight, I'm not exactly sure that that's really what's going to be cut out of their budget. That's what was just discussed at their first meeting that went into the newspaper.
Okay, that, because I mean, especially when we went through this all, the biggest things that kept pointing out was fuel and paper, and that's, like, we're not putting a bunch of stuff in insurance.
Oh my God.
Insurance, like, everything that's increasing is not frills and pizzazz and fireworks and all of this crazy stuff. I didn't know if you knew and spoken to anyone else about what they were cutting and how we were differing, because I don't want a rumor mill to start that, you know, we're trying to inflate budgets and everyone else is cutting, like.
We met as the Western Maine Superintendent's Group the other day, and no one talked about any specific cuts, but we know some districts are hurting because they got a lot less from the state. We got more from the state this year, which definitely helped. Some of these districts' populations have dropped. Our population is staying pretty steady at the moment, because that could make a change. One district that was in the paper that ended up with a flat budget is because they ended up with 100 more students. That was the town of Lisbon. That's just where they happen to be. It's cheaper to live in Lisbon than Portland right now, so a lot of people working in Portland are starting to move up. And as long as it's not 100 kids that are in 2 grades, then it doesn't affect how many teachers you have to hire. But they get, because of the extra 100 students, they get about $7,000 per student to go towards their budget. Yeah. You're welcome.
Pretty much to make cuts, and at this point for us, it's cutting positions. And I would be totally against that, because that would be the worst for our students.
I wanted to kind of voice it, especially when we're after meeting, because, you know, everyone always, cut the budget, what's happening? And it's so easy to say that, but you're looking at every single number, and every single position is your neighbor, your friend, you know, it's your kid's teacher. Like, when you talk about, let's cut, you know, 1 point whatever million, okay, well, who else in the community would lose a job to make that cut, is where my mind kind of goes. So thank you for kind of clarifying.
Anything else on the sample warrant? Okay, thank you. Okay, you got your appointments and hires, and you see we have a Hersom coming back to coach again, son of a former Livermore Falls coach. And March 16th, again, very important meeting. That's for our budget warrants. That's pretty much the only thing that we have on the agenda. March 23rd is our regular meeting with a finance committee meeting. And then March 6th is the budget validation meeting. April 6th, thank you. The budget validation meeting at Spruce Mountain High School again. It's very important to be there, and as town members, of course, you can vote too. So. And I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Chantel, do I have a second? Phoebe? No discussion. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes. Lane? Yes. Pat?
Yes.
Yes.